Russell Brand, Narcissist, Part 6. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. We continue our examination of the evidence surrounding Russell Brand to make a determination as to what he is. We're now going to look at his various relationships. Now, the first thing to observe in relation to Russell Brand is he's had a lot of intimate relationships, not something that he has hidden, and indeed something that he wears as a badge of honour. This tells us two things. Having many intimate partners is an indicator of the behaviour of a narcissist, not determinative, but simply it is an indicator. The fact that he boasts about it is a form of grandiosity and demonstrates that there doesn't appear to be any kind of facade when it comes to attempting to cover up his sexual behaviour. It isn't the case that he has gone around saying that he is a one-woman man and that he hasn't had many sexual partners, and then actually it has been to the contrary. He has freely admitted that he has shagged around a lot and that he is flirtatious and that he's had a lot of sexual partners. This is demonstrative of a hypersexualized nature, which is often found with narcissists, particularly those of somatic and elite cadre. Is often determinative as well with regard to establishing what somebody is, to look at the nature of their relationships. The fact that he has had many is also an indicator. The fact that he has many short relationships is also an indicator, which suggests that either he gets bored very quickly and needs to move on, or the relationship collapses as a consequence of perhaps his behaviour, leading the other individual to no longer want to be in a relationship with him. It's also something that helps in the determination to look at what those people have to say about his behaviour in those relationships. And to that end, we turn to the Telegraph, which has a detailed list of many of his high-profile exes. He was with Kate Moss in 2006. In his follow-up autobiography, My Boogie Work 2, Brand wrote about his night with the supermodel, who he claims he went home with after she attended a gig of his in Islington, North London. Notice again that he's quite content to share details of his intimate liaisons with an audience through his book, through his stand-up work, which shows an absence of emotional empathy for the other people in the relationship. He simply doesn't care about how they're affected by it. Writing about waking up next to her the following morning, Brand says, "The raging dawn of a sleeping Kate Moss, the illumination warring with the daybreak, intimidated by her radiance. The sun disappears behind a cloud. Her hair fans over the pillow like a peacock's tail." History does not recount whether these florid descriptions led to further encounters between the pair, but the famously tight-lipped model is now rumoured to dislike Brand so much that nobody is allowed to mention his name in her presence. Peaches Geldof, 2006. Peaches Geldof was 16, Brand was 31. Again, demonstrating a significant age difference. Whilst not unlawful, it perhaps points to picking somebody younger because they are deemed to be easier to control. Brand's relationship with Peaches, who died aged 25 of a drugs overdose, was never confirmed. The then schoolgirl's family certainly seems to dislike him. At the 2006 NMEs, Brand presented an award to Bob Geldof, but appeared to mispronounce his name, calling him Sir Bobby Gandalf. Bob responded, "Russell Brand, what a cunt." In 2015, a year after Peach's death, her sister, Fifi Geldof, allegedly called Brand an uber-douche extraordinaire during a charity fundraiser for drug addiction. It would appear that there is no love lost between the Geldofs and Russell Brand. Jordan Martin, 2007. PR executive Jordan Martin was one of the first women to publicly raise the flag when she claimed in her 2015 self-published book that Brand had subjected her to emotional abuse over the course of their 6-month relationship. Allegations included the fact that he'd invited 2 women to have sex in their house, which they briefly shared, infidelity, threesome, that he forced her to brush her teeth to the point that they bled, and that he accused her of being sexually attracted to her own brother. False accusation, provocation. When asked why she didn't leave him, Martin said, "I was vulnerable, at a low point in my life, and I was living with Russell, an extremely powerful character who would verbally knock me down and then cuddle me 10 seconds later." Black and white behaviour. In the book, she renamed herself Dina and Brand as Randall Grand, but she told the Sunday Times she stood by her account. Brand denies all the allegations made by the Sunday Times, but he has never challenged the content of the book. Georgina Bailey, 2008. It's an indictment of the noughties that one of the few occasions when Brand's behaviour with women did have professional consequences involved the humiliation of a man. Saxgate, when Brand and Jonathan Ross left obscene messages on Andrew Sachs's answer phone, cost the comedian his job at Radio 2. In one of the calls, Brand boasted about having sex with the actor's granddaughter, Georgina Bailey, saying, "It was consensual and she wasn't menstrual, it was consensual, lovely sex." The BBC received 40,000 complaints and was fined £150,000 by Ofcom. At the time, Bailey was a dancer and at 23 was a decade younger than Brand. She has subsequently said that she was not abused by him, but in the months following the scandal, she turned to drugs and alcohol. After Saxgate, Russell made millions of pounds doing a stand-up routine about it, and that was very hard and painful for me. The fact that he goes on to do a stand-up routine about the incident shows a sense of entitlement, self-absorption, and lack of emotional empathy for those affected by it. Katy Perry, 2009 to 2012. Prior to his current marriage to Laura Gallagher, Brand's most notable relationship was with the American megastar Katy Perry, who was his wife for a little over 14 complex-sounding months. Perry, who's now engaged to Orlando Bloom, has said of Brand, "He's a very smart man, and I was in love with him when I married him." It was a brutal ending, and Perry has said her last communication from Brand was a text message saying he wanted a divorce, which was sent moments before she performed to a crowd of thousands, which again exhibits an absence of emotional empathy in treating her in that manner. You may also recall back in 2010 that Russell Brand posted an unflattering picture of his wife, Katy Perry, on his Twitter page, and it showed Katy Perry without any makeup on. In the picture, a startled-looking Perry appeared to have been photographed just as she was waking up, and she's never really seen without any makeup. The picture was soon removed. The fact that he took a picture and then placed it on Twitter, which was clearly unflattering, shows likely devaluing behaviour of Katy Perry. The fact that he deems that it's appropriate for him to share that information with so many people suggests an absence of emotional empathy in relation to her. Perry also explained that her devastation and subsequent professionalism as she readied herself to go on stage proved one of the most moving parts of her documentary, Part of Me. In it, Perry would also hint at something darker in her marriage, saying, "I felt a lot of responsibility for it ending, but then I found out the real truth, which I can't necessarily disclose because I keep it locked in my safe for a rainy day. I let go, and I was like, this isn't because of me, this is beyond me." Somewhat cryptic, but suggests that things were not exactly a roller coaster, or rather, things were a roller coaster ride and not exactly a smooth ride between Katy Perry and Russell Brand. Jerry Halliwell Horner, 2012. The pair first met at the Pride of Britain Awards. At the time, Halliwell described their relationship as a whirlwind. How often have you heard the description of a relationship with a narcissist as being one which is of a whirlwind? She added, "Is he my ideal man? I'm choosy. I want someone who's trustworthy, sweet and kind." Now those words provide some insight into why the relationship cooled off after little more than a month, with Halliwell allegedly describing the comedian as too intense. Neither has spoken about their brief union. Jemima Goldsmith, 2013. It was an unlikely pairing, an heiress from a British banking dynasty and a comedian from Essex, but they were together for almost a year. One scandal from the relationship now stands out. Masseuse Zazilka Berkey was paid £500 by Goldsmith, who then went by the name Khan, to give the comedian a treatment at her Oxfordshire home. Berkey subsequently said she was assaulted by Brand, and when the police dropped the matter, she attempted to contact newspapers and MPs. In a 2014 High Court ruling, a senior judge said that Berkey's claims are on their face internally inconsistent and have enlarged over time. The masseuse was banned by Mrs. Justice Carr under an anti-harassment order from contacting Brand and Khan. Goldsmith and Brand, who have never spoken publicly about their relationship, had already split up by the time of the ruling. Interesting there that an accusation of assault was made against Brand by a masseuse, and it was not accepted by a court. Might it be that this is another instance of the allegations, or are they too numerous for that to be the case? Differing responses there in relation to the nature of the relationship with Russell Brand, and a further disclosure comes from Rhianne Sugden. She briefly dated him and insisted that nothing untoward happened when they were together. The 37-year-old former glamour model confirmed she had been approached by reporters months back, but insisted she'd nothing to tell them. She wrote on X, formerly Twitter, "I had reporters and dispatches knocking on my parents' door months ago, asking for information on Russell Brand, as we briefly dated when I was younger. He was always very pleasant to me and treated me well. Despite him attempting to shag his way through other Page 3 girls and getting declined, he soon went full circle and joined a No More Page 3 campaign to get us shut down. I can't comment on the allegations that have been made against him. I've no scoop on the fella, except his hair used to smell bad, and he definitely wasn't the one that got away." Those are the thoughts and observations of Rhianne Sugden, who dated him briefly, stating that she was treated well. But note that she focuses in on the fact that once again he was attempting to shag his way through other Page 3 girls. For those of you who don't know, Page 3 used to exist in the Sun newspaper, where a young topless lady would appear, and eventually they stopped doing it. Not a surprise, really, to find that Russell Brand was targeting those individuals for the purpose of having sex with them, and also, interestingly, showing the volte-face that engaged in, that he wanted to shag his way through them, and then he wanted to close down the campaign. Hypocrisy, or did he simply wake up to the error of his ways? We then turn to the relationship with his current wife. It was a chance meeting on the towpath of a canal in London's East End, where Laura Gallagher's life changed forever. 8 years ago, broken-hearted after her relationship ended, a friend coaxed her out of her flat for a walk. There, as she strolled near her home, was Russell Brand, fresh from his own split from American singer Katy Perry. It was like he'd organised it, confesses Miss Gallagher, the younger sister of television star Kirsty Gallagher and daughter of golfer Bernard Gallagher. And she'd actually dated Brand some years before, when she was just 18 years old. "I hadn't seen Russell for years," she adds. "He was so different. We both immediately knew it was going to be serious." Their romance was indeed a whirlwind, there's that word again, and they immediately moved in together. Swift cohabitation, showing a sense of entitlement. Laura was besotted, and she wanted to mend him, says a friend. This is quite common of individuals that find themselves ensnared with narcissists, that they see the narcissist presenting as damaged or broken in some way and wants to fix them. And perhaps that is why, despite the claims of rape and assault, Gallagher is standing by him. What Russell did was firmly in the past, way before he and Laura met, mentioned a friend. Of course it isn't easy, but they're determined to get through this. Despite her support for her husband, Miss Gallagher set tongues wagging on Saturday when it emerged she had deleted her Instagram account. It therefore might be suggested that she was simply doing that to avoid unpleasant comments being directed towards her. Some might be surprised that Brand's domestic life, as his stunning £3 million riverside thatched house near Henley in Oxfordshire, remains fully intact, but those in the know are not. For Laura Gallagher is the woman who is well renowned for taming him following years of living as a hell-raising womanizer, whose busy and colourful love life was rarely out of the tabloids. Miss Gallagher 36, a mummy blogger and author of parenting book The Joy Journal for Magical Everyday Play, is said to be kind-natured, despite coming from a high-profile family, happy to stay out of the limelight. Apart from the odd appearance on Brand's much-watched YouTube channel, she keeps her head down. There are no red carpet appearances, and any pictures of the pair are paparazzi shots. Since they got together in 2015, there hasn't even been as much of a rumour that Brand has had any other lovers, proving that Ms. Gallagher, currently heavily pregnant with the couple's third child, helped cure his rampant sex addiction. Is this the case that he has indeed changed his ways? They've been together for 8 years. If he's a narcissist, how might that be explained? No golden period would last for that long. Is it the case that he devalues in other ways, but hasn't done so in terms of infidelity? Or is it the case that he has engaged in infidelity and his wife simply doesn't know about it? It would seem unusual if that were the case, given the level of prominence that he has. But we'll be looking in a later part at the supposed transformation of Russell Brand from hell-raising womanizer to wellness guru and apparently faithful husband. But what is interesting is that the array of relationships that he's had, the shortness of them, and of course there are plenty more beyond the ones that have been mentioned, do show certain repeated themes which indicate various aspects that would support a potential finding of narcissism. The number of relationships, the shortness of their nature, allegations of poor behaviour whilst in them, the fact that there is repeated intimate partner relationships are all narcissistic indicators. But we shall continue with the examination of the evidence. Join me in part 7.